Welcome back, everyone. No sprinter episode. So, Friday night in the booth, gonna crack this side out. Well, as much as I can. Finish most of it on Saturday. Get it prepped. Get these door shuts, all these apertures all keyed up. Any final bits. I've not got a great deal to do, but yeah, I don't get it all done on the Friday night, so it goes into Saturday. But yeah, this is Friday night now. What you're watching. I've still got the windscreen sealer to remove as well. I'm gonna get all that cleaned out, any rust and stuff. So yeah, I've got quite a bit to do, but yeah, just getting all this keyed up with some 320 foam pad. Just again, hand pad, foam roll pad, and just get it all nice and keyed up in there, around all the hinges, and round all where the inner wings are and stuff. Get all that clean, get it keyed up. Even though you're not going to see it, you still want it clean. You still want it keyed up. You still want your paint to stick at the end of the day. Otherwise, what's the point? There's no point in going to all this effort if you're not going to rub it properly. So yeah, it is heartbreaking rubbing stuff like that because it's just so tedious. But you've just got to spend the time and do it. You'll be so grateful for when you've done it right later on, and you've rubbed it properly rather than just giving it a quick, you can't be bothered sort of sand. It's easy to say, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm not going to sand that properly, but if you go into this extent, then there's just no point doing the job. So yeah, I wasn't keen on it. Like the amount of times I'm gonna rub this van, I've already rubbed it for epoxy primer, and then I'm gonna rub it for black octral primer, or rub it when it's in black octral primer for paint. Once I paint the shell, I do plan on sanding it down and re-clear coating the shell. Like that's how far I plan on going with it. Um, Obviously, I haven't made that decision yet because I've not painted the shell. I might paint the shell and say stuff it, I'm leaving it as is, but no, I really do have big intentions of painting the shell and then flattening it all down and re-lacquering it. No colour, just clear coat. But yeah, it's all great saying that now when you've not painted it yet. So, and I really can't be bothered rubbing the shell down for another time, but it does make a hell of a difference when you re-clear coat a job like this. It makes a massive difference to the end result, and the overall longevity of the job. How much better that paint's gonna not chip and stuff. Two extra coats of clear coat down, that's gonna make a hell of a difference. So it will be worth it, especially because I plan on keeping the van for so long. I'd be stupid not to do it while I've got it to this state of bare shell. Windscreen's out, so I might as well just spend the time. Like realistically, it's only going to put another day on it. If I can get it cracked out on a Sunday, it would be a big shift, but it wouldn't be massive, and it's not undoable. I've done it plenty of times before, and I've done it with long wheelbase sprinters. I've gone in on a Monday before and had to sand the whole thing down from roof to the sills, remask it up and clear coat it. And that is some job to do in a day with one of them that's so big. And yeah, it's not pleasant. But when you do it every day, you just get quick at it. But yeah, I plan on doing the full shell. I'm not going to be doing any blow-ins or anything. I don't plan on doing that. If I'm going to clear coat the shell, I'll just rub it all. Like I could say, oh, I'll just start masking it out and not do the door shuts. But what's the point? That's just cutting corners in my head. If I'm going to re-lacquer the panels, I might as well do the door shuts and all the apertures as well. They're gonna, it just defeats the object in my eyes. I have done it before, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I'd just rather spend the time and rub the apertures instead of masking them out. Um, that's all. That's all that I'm going on about there. Really, you could spend the time masking them out, but there's just no point. You might as well just sand them, re-clear coat, and the whole shell's gonna look mint then. And you've got double clear coating all your door shuts. There's a lot of traffic in and out, and you're opening and shutting doors. You're brushing past, knocking paintwork. So if you've got an extra two coats of clear coat in there, you're pretty good for a long time. So yeah, there'll be plenty of material on this, shall we say. So horrible to scotch them inner wings. It's not fun. So tedious to get your hands in around there, and you just cut, like you feel like you're cutting your hands and knocking your hands on everything because there's a lot of sharp, jagged edges. I'm scotching that up with a red Scotch Brite and some solvent-based degreaser just to get any like the factory wax oil off, because there's a lot of that lurking around on them inner wings. They don't get any paint on them; they just get wax oil on them. and whatever blows through, blows through. But yeah, we're gonna paint them properly. Like I say, I'm gonna put epoxy primer on them. Then they're gonna get Octral high build, and then they're gonna get probably spray sealer, and obviously base coat and clear coat. So yeah, there's gonna be plenty of product on them inner wings after I'm done anyway. So yeah, they're gonna be pretty good for a long time. Again, it's so nice having that screen out now. Get access to all around it. So I just started with one of my air tools, just a little Blue Point air Dremel with a wire wheel on it. But it was eating through that wire wheel so quickly. I was like, no, I can't justify that. And not only that, I only had another one of them in my toolbox, so I couldn't be using one of them when it was only getting me a small section of sealer removed. It just wasn't worthwhile. Um, so yeah, one of the lads actually had a great idea. We have other tools for it. So yeah, that lad you see there in the shot, he had a great idea. He found me a wire wheel that goes on the angle grinder, like the corded 240-volt grinder. You plug in one, um, and I just got to work with that. That was an absolute animal at ripping the sealer out. It really was, but it was a bit of a nightmare to hang on to it because it's just wanting to catch on all the sealer. It's wanting to, because the head's spinning that fast. When you're pushing the wire wheel into the sealer, it's wanting to bite and snag, and it's trying to pull it out your hands. So yeah, that was pretty hard work getting all that out, but I tried to rip that out as quick as I could. So this is Saturday morning now. The live shot you see now, this is on Saturday morning. In early, I was in for about 8 a.m, cracking on. Get some Octral primer ordered because my plan was for Sunday was to get a load of black primer on the roof and the driver's side of the van. But yeah, today I'm just worrying about epoxy primer on this side of the van. The passenger side is what you see in there. So yeah, covering all my dash and stuff with a fire blanket and stuff in my airbox, just making sure none of that windscreen sealer's going in there. Again, that's just coming off in loads a little bit. Them wire wheels are ace on the grinder. They are absolutely lethal. You definitely don't want to catch your hands with them anyway, because you can, when you're using them, you can feel all the little wire brushes, like the individual bits of wire. You can feel all them coming off and like smacking off your hands and stuff. So I should really be wearing gloves doing this, but me and gloves just don't get along. I just feel like I can't hang on to stuff properly with gloves on. I just don't like it. So yeah, especially if you're hanging onto a grinder like that, ripping sealer out, you want to be hanging on to that thing, because if that thing jumps out your hand and snags on a bit of metal and fires off, you know, that's not going to be fun to try and catch that thing. So yeah, gloves give me a false sense of grip. I don't like them, so yeah, it's just better to not use them in my head. Yeah, I'm nearly halfway through that windscreen now. I'm so shocked how quick that's ripping that sealer back. Again, you can see the smoke coming off it. Not ideal, but yeah. I've got the door up, I'm in the booth, I've got the fans on again. We're moving out of that booth soon, so we're using that for all sorts at the minute, prepping jobs and that. Again, there's nothing wrong with prepping jobs in there as long as you're cleaning it afterwards and cleaning it mint. Obviously, not you wouldn't be doing this in your everyday booth if you were staying in here for the next 10 years, but you know, this is just getting done because we're moving out of here soon, so there's no point in being too thing. But yeah, obviously I'm gonna still paint this van and this booth, so I'm gonna be cleaning. I'll probably spend a good 2-3 hours cleaning the booth before I paint it, but it's worth doing. It's always worth spending the time cleaning your booth. Otherwise, you know, you're just gonna end up loads of crap in your job, and no one wants to spend hours and hours and hours polishing dirt out because it's just so tedious. Polishing dust nibs and wet flatten. Yeah, it's not. You don't mind a bit here and there, but you don't want to be spending days and hours doing it. I don't anyway. Especially when you do it 5 days a week. You don't want to be doing it on your own job, like absolutely days on end on a big van like this. Like some boys would say, oh, I wouldn't bother taking your dust nibs out, but that just goes against everything I know. You know, you always polish your dust nibs out, especially on a van. You know, especially on a personal van. You know, it's not just a commercial work van like a builder's van or something, or a, you know, it's a personal van. So if I was painting this for somewhat like a private customer, you'd still take all your dust nibs out, but certain people see it as, oh, it's a van, it doesn't matter. It still matters because they're still paying for a good job at the end of the day. You know, that customer's paying for a good paint job. You know, they don't want dust nibs in it. You know, if they want builder spec, well, they'll tell you, oh, I don't want to pay a lot of money, I want a quick cheap job. Well, you want to pay for a quick cheap job, you're gonna get a quick cheap job. i.e., the apprentices will be put on it or whatever. That's the way it goes. If someone says, "Oh, I want to pay mint money for a mint job," well, they get the experienced boys put on it, and that's the bottom line. At the end of the day, you pay for what you get. If you pay cheap, you get a cheap job. If you pay good, you get a good job. But if you're paying good and you're getting a bad job, then there's something wrong, and vice versa. You've got to be making sure that you are getting what you're being told. No one likes to have a bad job done to them at the end of the day. Definitely not. So yeah, onto that bottom row sealer now. Bottom bottom edge of the windscreen aperture. I just prefer starting on the sides, working around the top, and finish on the bottom. Get all the hard. It's harder leaning over it on the sides and up the top than it is on the bottom. Don't know why, it just is. You're up high, you're swinging off ladders. It's not comfortable. It hurts your hips and stuff after a while leaning like that. Um, yeah, it's not nice. Yeah, I was surprised how clean my windscreen aperture was with rust. There wasn't that much rust around it to be fair, which is quite surprising. Usually you take a screen out on one of these sprinters and it's just scab after scab after scab, and you end up with holes and rot and all sorts. So yeah, no, I was quite happy. I've obviously got a respirator on while I'm doing this. For people wondering, I've got a full face respirator on with a face screen in it. Um, for people that are wondering, yeah, I wouldn't be doing that without a face screen or a mask or anything. Um, yeah, it's obviously got a face visor in it, so none of them wire bristles can fly off and hit me in the eyes, because that wouldn't be very nice either. So yeah, you're doing anything like that, you always want to make sure you got decent stuff on you for PPE. Yeah, there's nothing worse than stuff like that firing off and hitting you in the face. People always like laugh at it and take the mick, but it's there for a reason. It's to stop you getting seriously messed up at the end of the day. So you know, it's not a laughing matter. Just use the stuff and it'll look after you, sort of thing. Like some of them big masks and stuff you gotta wear, they can be a nightmare, but they're designed for a reason. They're not there to look nice or please your missus or anything. They're there to keep you protected at the end of the day. So yeah, just use the stuff, use the gear. To be fair, I actually don't mind wearing my full face sunstorm mask. Like some of the masks I've worn are pretty uncomfortable, but if you can find one that's molded to your face nicely, like obviously everyone's got different shaped mouths and faces, so different masks will fit people differently. But the brand I like and the brand I do use, they seem to have a very good general all round fit for most worldwide human beings. Um, yeah, so I generally would recommend, if anyone's looking for a good respirator, the Sunstorm respirators are fantastic. Um, very very good. Like I say, I've used their airfed one, their airface full, their full face airfed systems for years, and yeah, highly rate them. You get a glass screen in the full face mask. You can just wipe that down with paint thinners in between coats. There's no messing around with tear offs or anything like that. Like other brands, you got to start messing about with bloody tear offs, and they cost you money. You've got a bloody buy a pack of tear offs just so you can paint a job, versus putting a glass screen in your full face mask so you can just wipe it down with paint thinners in between jobs. Yeah, so there is certain brands of masks I just refuse to even consider going near now, because I just think they're a con. I think they're a scam. The fact they just scam you into buying visors and protective screens for the full face mask. So yeah, the Sunstorm range is brilliant. Can't say a bad word about them, to be honest. The stuff's expensive, but you pay for what you get. It's protecting you from isocyanites and some really horrible stuff. So it's got to be expensive for that reason, because it's doing a job at the end of the day. It's protecting you from dying. It literally is. You don't want to be breathing any of that stuff in from primer and lacquer. It's not nice. Even base coat. But yeah, especially your two pack stuff. Your two pack products are not good for you. So yeah, just cleaning up any remaining sealer and paint and stuff around the windscreen with a small wire wheel. because again, that's better for just painting like light rust. You don't like it wasn't too friendly on taking the sealer out because it was just eating through the wire wheel. So yeah, that's why I've gone back to that now. Easier to hold, more controlled, just generally more friendly to use than the battery grinder for taking paint and stuff off. Like I could have used that, but it was just my arms were hanging off me. That thing was wild to hold on to. So yeah, the air one's just a bit more easier, bit more controlled. Get it in there. Like you say this because it's smaller, the wheel's smaller. You can get it into the curvature a lot better, opposed to the 4.5 inch wheel, which is just yeah. And obviously, once that's spinning at whatever RPM it's spinning at, it gets bigger because obviously it's spinning at such a high rate. So it's actually harder to push it into such a small groove. Um, so yeah, that's why I prefer air tools anyway. But that electric grinder was just meant for ripping that sealer out. I would have been so stuck without that. Like we do have other air tools for ripping sealer out. Don't get me wrong, but I really like how quick that thing took the sealer out. I was pretty shocked at how good that was. I've used many different tools for scraping sealer out, like the old school way of just hacking at it with a Stanley blade and stuff. Oh, that is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, but yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Especially if you know that's what you've got, and you've got none of these fancy tools, then you're just gonna have to scrape at it, unfortunately, and then sand the rest of it away. Like I've done that many times before, and that's not fun either. Just eating through your sanding discs just wears through them so quick because you just literally sanding it like a rubbery, you know, it is like rubber. Windscreen bond is like a rubber. It's weird. So yeah, you can imagine how that just eats through your sandpaper. It's so nice how clean that windscreen aperture come up. There's such clean metal in there. Nice for a change on a Sprinter, especially my one. Mine's been pretty rotten. Yeah, I'm not actually standing on the scuttle panel there. I know my foot is on there. That's more of a stability footing. I'm just getting into like a stable position. I wouldn't be standing there putting all my weight there because I'd bend the metal. It's not designed to take human weight. It's just more so for me to balance, if that makes sense. Because I'm standing on them sketchy ladders. I did go get them. Pretty sure I get the blue ones for when I'm priming and painting it because I just couldn't be bothered standing on them yellow ones. Yeah, and you can see how clean that's coming up. So happy with how clean that actually did come up. There's Bill just chilling on the dashboard there, just checking out how the respray's going. Not going too well yet. Anyway, with no paint on the shell yet, Bill. We're getting there. We're getting there. So yeah, just using the dash as a bit of a seat, just chilling out, whipping that paint off from around the aperture, getting it all back to clean metal. Again, because there's not much paint in there, I just thought just take it all back to bare metal, see if there's any rust hardening behind any of the paint or the primer, because it doesn't take long to take out any existing paint in there. So, and again, it's not like the windscreen. Once that windscreen's probably never been out since the van was left the factory. You know, it might have been, but I don't think it had been, to be honest. So yeah, while it's out, it's good to get any rust or anything sorted and cleaned up. That way we know where we're at then for the next 10 years or so. Because this is a 2014 Sprinter, so it's over 10 years old now, so it's not, it's not massively bad for rust, but it's been bad enough considering it's only just over 10 years, and, we've welded panels in, we've welded patches in, we've welded plates in, she's been pretty rotten. But, yeah, she's going to be pretty sound for the next good few years anyway once we're done. Be nice to drive the thing again. Really looking forward to driving it again. Don't know why, it's just a van at the end of the day. It's nothing special about it, but yeah, I like driving a van. There's something nice about driving vans. I drive a lot of nice cars at work, but yeah, there's something just nice about driving a van. Don't know what it is. Yeah, do get to jump in some really nice motors, but like I've drove some really nice cars, but yeah, cars just don't do it for me. Not really that bothered. Vans are more where it's at for me, really. Vans are just sick that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. And the reason I like vans is because I can stuff all the bikes in the back of them. That's the only reason I'm keen on them. But yeah, they're just generally, I find them easy to drive because you're higher up. You've got bigger windows, bigger wing mirrors. You've just got better visibility in them. You haven't got a rear view mirror, but that doesn't really bother me at the end of the day. You've got your side mirrors. As long as you're looking at them, you know what's behind you. But yeah, I just generally find them easier to drive. Cars, I don't like driving some small cars. You feel like you're on the floor. You can't see anything. Some of them new cars now, the dashboards are that long in them. It's like a cockpit of an aeroplane. You feel like the dashboard goes on forever, and I hate that feeling of just, yeah, it's not for me. That I really don't like that. Yeah, just finishing the prep work up around the scuttle panel, prepping it all up in 320 still. Nothing different. I'm just rambling on, talking rubbish. There's not much to do when I've got that much going on here again. So much to get prepped. If anyone actually owns a Sprinter, see that part I'm rubbing there on the scuttle panel. Go next time you go and look at it. Open the bonnet, or you could probably have a look with the bonnet closed, and go and check if you can see if your paint's flaking off down there. Because yeah, they seem to not have a lot of paint on them down there in general from factory. Any Sprinter, I don't know why, but they just don't seem to have a great deal of paint on them. Um, that spot I'm rubbing now with the orbital sander there, it's like a lip where you've got like a rain seal that sits over the top of that. Yeah, you don't seem to get much paint on that part of the van. I was very shocked when I took the bonnet off and I was having a proper look, and it was all pretty much in factory etch primer, like the beige etch primer, and I was pretty miffed at that because it's not like any of the scuttle had been painted, because there was no need for the scuttle panel to be painted before. That was all still original factory paintwork. So yeah, it's quite surprising to see that, if I'm honest. So yeah, if anyone's got a Sprinter, go and have a look and see if you got any flaky paint underneath your bonnet there where the scuttle panel is. This is tedious, rubbing around windscreen apertures. There's some bad rust on that A pillar there. Start getting that deck down in a minute, down to bare metal. There's some really bad rust behind that. I think we go back to 180 in a minute for that, because yeah, that was this little shot probably doesn't do it justice, and I probably didn't get a real time video of it, to be honest, because I was just pushing on. I had so much to get done in such short time period on this Saturday. It was a case of just go, go, go. But yeah, that pillar there was just spider legs all the way up it. It was so rotten. There's only light spider legs of rust, but yeah, we'll just jump to an 80 grit now, just because some of them are quite deep. So yeah, just ripping that first layer back a bit more aggressive, and then yeah, back over 180 and then a 320 again, getting all them 180s out, and then getting all your 80s out with your 180, and then getting all your 180s out with your 320. Again, you don't want to be priming over anything coarser than your 320, because you'll see it all, and all your primer will sink and shrink, and it's not going to look very pretty. So yeah, always finishing something nice and fine. Again, within reason, nothing too fine. So yeah, there's a slight blemish up the top there. Slight little spider leg I just wasn't happy with. I could just still see the little black dot. So just going to get him cleaned up a bit more. Yeah, get these bonnet hinges off now too. I've been leaving them till last minute because they're a pain to take off, because the bolts have always got sealer over them. So they're a T25 Torx. There's two either side. Again, I'm just using a soft blow hammer to just center the Torx in the bolt, because it's got a lot of like body sealer. So from factory, Mercedes decided to brush sealer in over the bolts, over the bolt heads. I don't know why. It just means you can't get a Torx in nicely. So you're either there with a pick picking it out, or you just tap the Torx into it with a soft blow hammer. Either, but yeah, I pick what I can out and then just tap it in, make sure the Torx is in there before you start swinging off it with a ratchet, and cross thread top of the bolt or something. You know, you don't want to chew that. So yeah, get them out again. They're sealed. There's a lot of seal around them, so I'm gonna get all that cleaned up as well. I do end up actually scribing the backs of them with a little air scriber just to make sure I've got the sides right, so they go back to where they were. So yeah, just scribing on the underneath them, so you'll never see that because that's the side that fits to the wing. So just scribing in what side is what. Again, always handy to do that. It's really good to take note of what's gone where. Makes life so much easier when you put it back together. Because you could think, oh, they're both the same. You putting them back together, they might look exactly the same. They might not have a part number, or they might not have what side they're from on the object, like a hinge. Sometimes hinges will say RH for right hand or LH for left hand. If they don't say that and you think, oh, they're identical, and you go and put them back on in the wrong spot and you don't know, and something isn't fitting up right, you know, you're going to be kicking off to hell thinking, what the hell's going on? I've done the exact same thing as I've done, you know, this, that, and the other, and it's not working. And you'll be scratching your head, you'll be kicking off. You're going to be, yeah, it's not going to be fun. Only because you didn't label something and really they're not the same. You know, one could have a slight bit of a pitch on it, a couple of degrees here or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just good to take note and make sure you label stuff, because I've seen it before and I've experienced it myself where I've not labeled stuff and it's bit me badly by something so small as not labeling something, and it's cost big time in a mistake and money. So, you know, as long as you learn from your mistakes, that's all that matters. Because if you're not learning, then there's no point in you carrying on. You know, you have to be learning from your mistakes. Otherwise, you're just going to be an idiot at the end of the day, just running around in circles. It's always good to make mistakes because then you'll learn. But if you just keep making them and making them and making them, well, you're definitely not learning from them then, are you? So, you know, it's good to just take a minute and think to yourself, right, what have I done wrong here? Go back at it with a fresh head and a fresh attitude. It's easy to lose the head and start getting angry and stuff, but it doesn't get you anywhere. You know, you're just gonna start making it worse for yourself. You know, you're not gonna do a better job. You know, you're gonna start when you start painting frustrated, you start pulling the trigger harder and grabbing the gun and squeezing it because you're annoyed or you're angry, and you're definitely not going to paint a better job if you're angry and annoyed like that, because you're going to take it out on the spray gun and on the job. And yeah, that's not good. I've done that myself before. You know, you go in the booth and you're all annoyed about something, and yeah, it's not a good mindset to go and paint a job in, because you know it just when it goes wrong, then it's everything's even worse then. So you know it's just it's definitely not about a good way to be. You got to be so chilled when you're doing this and just think about what you're doing and try and keep 5 steps ahead of yourself, but don't get annoyed when it goes wrong. Just try and put it right and do it quickly, but you know, make sure you're not compromising the quality with your speed, because if you're compromising your quality with your speed, then you know your quality is everything. You know, it really is. Your speed does matter, but your quality is everything in your job. Anyone can paint a job. You know, you could go and buy a spray gun tomorrow and go and paint a job, but doesn't mean it'll be any good. You know, it's how much time it takes for you to do what it does to get the job to a certain state of quality, if that makes sense. You know, it's all the stripping and refitting and taking it apart and cleaning the stuff before you put it back. That does make a massive difference. You know, greasing all your bolts, greasing all your screws, making sure everything's oiled and stuff. You know, that's a big difference as well. Um, it does take a bit longer, definitely, but you know, why wouldn't you? I'm that way, but some people aren't. Some people are just like, just bang it in, you know, no grease or anything. But it's like, well, if you've taken something apart to that level to paint it, why would you not spend the time greasing it so it doesn't rust and corrode again? You know, and it really, yeah, it frustrates me to the point I can't even talk about it, because it's like, well, why would you even bother taking something apart to do all that work if you're not going to put it back mint and put it back put it back better than when the factory did it? You know, if you're doing something to that extent, your aim is to do it better than factory in my head. So if them boys don't even grease the bolts, they'll Loctite them, put a bit of Loctite around the bolts, and that'll be it. It's rare for you to find any bolts that have got grease or oil around them from factory. It'll all be cost saving though, they're not going to spend time greasing and oil and stuff when they don't need to. Because again, you're not going to go buy a brand new van in a couple of years' time then if they're oiling and greasing everything as they should be. They'll give it a quick squirt or something, but it'll be the bare minimum. They're not going to spend the time putting the mint products on and making sure that thing lasts. Yeah, just getting her all finally getting us all side prepped up. It's what is crackers is there's more repairs on this side of the van than there is on the other side of the van, but there's less panels this side. There's a smaller panel, this 1/4 panel above me now, but there's more repairs on that than there is on the other side of the van and the roof, pretty much. So yeah, that was quite annoying. That I should have really done that panel first because it was the worst one, but I think that's why I was leaving it, because I knew how I had my work cut out for me, and I just wanted to think about it. I didn't want to rush it and do it and just be like, yeah, it's done, but not be happy with it, because then what's the point? Again, because there was a lot of fabrication and metal work to do, I didn't want to rush it and not be happy with it, because again, like I say, I'm not experienced with fabrication or metal work. I'm fully experienced with paint and prep and that side of things, so me and fabrication don't really see eye to eye. I mean, I can do it, I just, yeah, don't really. I just get annoyed with it because I don't really fully get the gist of it, if that makes sense to people. Like prep and paint is, I can go in and do that hungover in some horrible conditions and just crack it out. But welding and fabricating, I can't even do. I can barely do it on a good day. But painting jobs hungover and not in healthy states is, something I'm. Don't want to say I'm used to it, but I've definitely done my fair share of it anyway. So yeah, you can just sort of do. I can do all that stuff with my eyes shut now. But yeah, the fabrication side, that's a different kettle of fish. I'm just, yeah, so far beyond what experienced boys are with that. But yeah, I'm not too bothered. I'd rather stick with paint. Paint's where I've always been, and it's where I'll always stay. So that big skim I'm prepping up. I'm prepping all that up with a DA. There's no foam pad on there. I should really be blocking it, but I just didn't have the shoulders to block that skim. And because the panel was pretty flexy, every time I did try and block it, the panel was flexing. It was easier to just DA it. People watching that will probably be cringing that know that I should be blocking it, but I don't care because I block it when it's in primer. When I prime it with epoxy, I block it, and then I block it again when it's primed in actual. So if people want to whinge at me, you'll see the end result, and we'll see if it's any good or not, and see if I know what I'm doing or if I'm not. If I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, you'll find out. But yeah, I should be blocking that. This is again. There's nothing wrong with DA in it. It's just not. It's not advised, if that makes sense, but it's not frowned upon either. Can't really explain it. Some people would just be like kicking off because I'm using the DA, but yeah, in my head I should be blocking it, but because the panel's that flexible, there's just no point because I can't block it how you should be able to block a filler repair by hand. So yeah, not the best, but not the worst. But yeah, we'll see how she is in the end result. I did actually get a skim put in that in previous footage, but I had an absolute hellish week where I put a skim in that. I didn't put enough hardener in my filler. Filler didn't go off. It went off to a point where the skim was hard, but it wasn't hard enough that it was rubbing nice. It was clogging the discs up like candle wax. So yeah, after all these years, you still can have big mistakes like that, and it wasn't a massive mistake, but yeah, it just meant I had to dig all my filler out and go again. So when that was going on the other week, the camera didn't even come out for POV footage. I was just so annoyed and so yeah wound up that I felt 10 steps back. I was just like, yeah, stuff this. The camera can just stay away from it. I need to concentrate on what I'm doing. Making mistakes like that isn't wise and isn't clever. Again, I'm not used to filming with a camera on my head or in a chest mounted position. It's not something I've ever done, so I've been thinking more about that than what I'm doing, to be honest, because I'm thinking, oh, is it actually pointing where I need it to? Is it seeing what I'm doing? This, that, and the other. I keep forgetting to turn it on sometimes, so yeah, it's all new to me. So I keep thinking about all that rubbish than actually doing what I should be. So I'm, you know, making stupid mistakes by not putting enough hardener in my filler, which cost me big time, really. But anyway, we got it sorted. We got another skim in it, and it did go off. I haven't had that happen to me for a long time, to be fair. So yeah, it still can happen. Can happen to anyone. You know, just make sure you're putting enough in, but not too much. It's happy medium amount. Again, there's some hellish repairs in that passenger side quarter. Some not like bad as in the dodgy, just as in like they were a nightmare to do and just, yeah, not pleasant. But yeah, we got there in the end. Well, we're not painted the shell yet, so we'll know when there's paint on it how bad they look or how good they look. But I'm pretty confident they'll look good enough for a van anyway. No, like I was saying, no van is perfectly flat when you look down the side of them. They're all rippled to hell, especially when geniuses decide to start fixing beds to the inside skins of the quarter panels, and then you're sitting on your bed and putting weight on it, and because it's pulling on the inside skins, it's rippling down the outside of your van even worse because it's all flexing on the skins and stuff. So yeah, that's always a favorite one of mine when people do that. And then they wonder why they've got all these big press marks down the side of the van because the inside skin's pulling off the outside. Geniuses. But yeah, what do I know, eh? Yeah, that definitely wasn't fun trying to rub that in there, you know. So that's a filler spreader. I've just got my Colad filler spreader on some sandpaper, just trying to use that as a hard edge to try and get that edge nice. Because again, I had to do a pretty challenging repair right there on that last hole for the sliding door rail. We had to weld some serious plates in there. Again, I had to weld two backing plates in, and then the final outer one to the outer skin. And then yeah, we got some big skims and a filler and some Fibertech and stuff. Again, that Fibertech stuff's brilliant. Reinforced with Kevlar or something. Some really strong stuff anyway. Yeah, it does go rock hard. So yeah, I always put that over the welds and stuff. Never put body filler over welds because it's porous. You're better off putting Fibertech or Fiberfill. Um, it's better than body filler for it anyway. It's more structural as well. Like fiberglass is obviously porous, but the Fibertech stuff's better than body filler. Hell of a lot better. Again, that curvature there on that inside panel, I had to put quite a few bits of filler on that. There's quite a few bits of rotten metal and stuff. So I did just take. Obviously, I've fast forwarded. You know, I've started masking up, but the DJI was actually on charge because I've only got one battery at the minute, so I'm having to do bits, throw it on charge, do bits, throw it on charge. But I was pretty lucky. I got pretty much all of that bashed out in one battery sitting. So went and had some food, put it on charge. So I'm back at it now in the afternoon, getting all this side masked out for my epoxy now. So yeah, this is exciting because then it means the full shell will finally be an epoxy primer. That beige colour you see, RAL 70 Freeze 2, I think it is. Yeah, that's if anyone's wondering what shade of colour that is, it's a RAL colour. Just a beige that Meeper have picked for their epoxy. Again, that epoxy primer that flattens so nicely. It's really hard and durable, and hard wearing, but it rubs really nice and powdery. Like it doesn't clog your sandpaper up. It's not bad in that respect, and it rubs powdery. It's really nice, but you don't burn through it quick at all. You know, if you're on an edge using your robot sander on an edge for a couple of minutes, and you're gonna burn through with any paint or primer. But that stuff, you know, that is really hard wearing. So yeah, I massively recommend that stuff to anyone doing this sort of project work, resprays, whatever it is. That is a big, definitely a big recommendation of mine. If anyone wants to know product numbers, whatever it is, off the Meeper epoxy, I'll get back to them and fire that away. But I'm not going to go leaving stuff and videos for people that don't really have any interest in it. But yeah, if people want to know, just fire me a message, comment, whatever you need to do, and I'll get back to you when I can. Yeah, less of that. Bit more masking now. Sliding door aperture. Get the rear aperture masked out, and then yeah, just run some 18-inch paper across the roof. Then yeah, and I don't want any overspray going in the van. I'm not too bothered about the wheels. Like to start with, I was masking all my wheels up and stuff, but them steel wheels and them tires, they're not going back on the van. We're going to be buying some nice new wheels towards the end of the project. We'll get something nice, but what I was having trouble with though was getting the 2-inch tape to stick inside my wheel arches again. Nothing wants to stick in there now because I've put in the fresh spray sealer in there. Well, it's not even fresh. It's been done for over a month now, but it still doesn't like it in there anyway. Again, going and taping all them holes. I don't want any overspray coming in through the sliding door rail holes, landing on anything, going in the cab. So yeah, that lip across the bonnet, well not the bonnet, the engine bay there, I'm actually going to paint that. But for primer now, I'm just going to mask off it. I'm going to paint that purple because you will see that when you open the bonnet. So yeah, just backmasking off that metal lip and then just pulling the tape back and sticking it to the paper. Nothing too complex, nice and straightforward. Again, running fold backs everywhere leaves me a nice soft edge for the paint to drift. You don't want big hard edges. No one wants hard edges, especially not me. Hard edges are not what you want on any of your jobs. So yeah, it's nice. Got all that clear sheeting still stuck half over the van from when I last was priming, so still reusing that, which is nice. You know, it's cost effective for the boss because I've used his clear sheeting, so he'll be grateful for that. So thank you to him for letting me use bits and pieces. It's really nice, and I'm really grateful of him for letting me use the stuff and the workshop. You know, he doesn't have to let anyone use it, so no, I'm really grateful for that. So yeah, I always try and be cost effective and saving money like that. You know, that clear sheeting. Yeah, I when did I use that for? Can't remember what I was last spraying on the van when. Yeah, but anyway, use that again to just cover door shuts. It was still half draped over the van, so I'm gonna use it. I'm not gonna rip it off. Just reuse it for now. If it was paint, obviously I'd be ripping it off because it'll be full of dust. But so yeah, all the masking will get ripped off and it'll get all freshly masked for paint. Everything will be blown down and clean before it even goes back in the booth. I'll probably even panel wipe it before it goes in the booth, and then I'll panel wipe it again when it's in the booth. just because I'm that type of person. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was having a nightmare there. Tape's just not sticking. But obviously, I didn't want any of that beige overspray going in the wheel arches. But at this time on a Saturday now, when I was filming this, I was just kind of like, you know what, whatever happens, happens. If I've got to go in there with another tube of spray sealer and re-black it, then I will. It's not the end of the world. Getting epoxy on was more important to me than having a bit of overspray in a wheel arch. You know, I wasn't really too bothered about that. Getting epoxy primer on bare metal really meant that it just meant that, so this was Saturday when I was filming this, it meant on the Sunday that I could come in and hopefully get the roof prime black and the driver's side prime black. So, you know, it was make or break. This is what I say, you know, on the weekends for me doing this, whatever I do on the weekends, that determines how far on I can push it. You know, if I go in and do 9-10 hour day, you know, and get a lot done, then that's mint, you know, because I can't achieve that in the week, you know, after 5 o'clock, you know, by 7 o'clock, 7:30, I'm done, I'm ready for home. You know, I've probably been in and probably been on the tools since 8 o'clock or earlier some mornings. You know, I don't start till 8:30, but there's some mornings I'm on the tools before 8. You know, some mornings I might not be, but some mornings I am. So, you know, when you've done that many hours in a day and you've been doing what you're doing, so physically demanding, you're pretty cooked and you're done. So yeah, it's nice on a weekend when I can put an absolute stint in on it and, you know, get a lot of ground covered, and it feels like I've achieved a lot. It doesn't feel like I've just been dossing around. And that's the main thing for me on the weekend, you know, getting a lot of prep done and trying to make as much ground as I can on it to make it feel like my weekends are worthwhile spending on it, really. Because again, I don't want all this to feel like it was for nothing. Because yeah, that would upset me. Again, I started this. When did we start this? We started the van. We started prep. Well, not even prepping it. We took it off the road. We took it off the road on the 2nd of August. And the first job I did was get it up on axle stands and start steam cleaning it. You know, some boys would have been like, well, why would you bother doing that? And I did that because I wanted to start painting the underneath of it first. You know, I wasn't, well, not painting it. I wanted to respray seal it all underneath first, and you know, crack on with a load of stuff that way. So yeah, that was the reason for that. And it just meant that when I brought it in the spray booth for painting it, all the wheel arches and stuff were clean as well. I didn't have to worry about any of that. You know, there's nothing more irritating as a painter when you take a car or a van or whatever it is in the booth, and you go to start taping in around your wheel arches, and there's just all like crud and muck and dirt and debris and sand and stuff in there, and next minute, you know, you've got like a part of a garden centre dropping out in your spray booth because there's like roadkill and, you know, bags of sand and bloody compost dropping out of someone's wheel arches. You know, there's nothing more irritating. So yeah, that was why first job for me was get the van up on axle stands, get on my back, get underneath it, and hit it with a steam cleaner. Just made so much more sense in my head, really. So yeah, I've got it all masked up now anyway. So this is the good part. This is the part everyone's waiting for now. Get to do a bit of spraying again. This is the easiest part. This is the time that the part that doesn't take the most time. Believe it or not, it's all the rubbish that goes in before it. Again, panel wiping takes a bit of time. It actually does, because you want to make sure your job's clean, because that's going to be one of the last things you do before you put your paint on or your primer. But yeah, you want to make sure all your contaminants, any grease or any silicons or anything like that is off your panel, off your job. Again, and not only that, it gives you one last time to feel the job, feel it, feel all your edges and feel anything. Does it feel nice? If there's been any repairs, does it feel like it? You know, how does it feel? Because it's make or break. If something feels really bad, then you shouldn't be priming it. So yeah, that's another good thing. You know, you get a good feel for stuff when you're panel wiping jobs with panel wipe cloths. I don't know why, but they give you a good sense of feel. Even though I'm wearing gloves, and gloves don't give me a good sense of feel, when you have one of them cloths in your hand and they're wet with panel wipe and you're rubbing it over a wet panel, you get a good sense of like if there's a dent there or not, or if there's a high spot in the metal. I know that doesn't probably make a lot of sense to some people, but if I was to give you one of them cloths and tell you to rub over a dent with it and without it, you would get what I'm talking about. Yeah, there is methods to the madness there. Again, making sure that cloth's clean. If there's When you start taking it off the panel and it's getting really dirty, that's when you want to be changing it. Again, well, you want to have one for wiping on, one for wiping off, one on, one off, one on, one off. Making sure that your contaminants are coming off the panel as they should be, and you're not just spreading them around your job, because that's not what you want. Otherwise, all your time is wasted then. If you start getting big reactions in your job because it's not degreased properly, well, then there's going to be tears. Trust me, I know about that. So yeah, take it from experience. Again, you want to get that epoxy mixed up really well as well, because that'll sediment in the tin. Because that was taking me a while. That was a brand new tin. That was taking forever for me to mix that up. It was like proper clumpy chunks of it in the bottom of the tin. So yeah, you want to make sure that's good. We do have a paint shaker sat there on the bench, but it's not bolted down yet, so I didn't really fancy hanging on to a paint shaker while it's pogo sticking across the bloody workbench there. So yeah, I just decided to mix it the old school way. But yeah, when we're in the new place, that paint shaker will all be set up and bolted down to the concrete floor. So we start putting brand new tins and stuff in there. It's nothing worse. You get a brand new tin of primer, and in the bottom you've got like 3 inches of just solid cement of sediment. And you know that sediment, that's where all the build comes from in your primer. It's all the good stuff, and that's what you want really. That's what you want to be putting down. So yeah, you always want to make sure you're getting that mixed in. I know boys that'll put a stick around a tin for 30 seconds, but that's mixed, and it's like, no, it's not. You've not even scraped the bottom of the tin yet, and then they'll wonder why. You'll wonder why you're having problems with your product, and it's like, well, have you scraped any of that sediment up round, got it mixed in properly? But yeah, you've always got to mix your primers and anything. You got to mix anything properly. If you don't mix it properly, it's not gonna adhere or it's not gonna go off. Like I found out with my skimmer filler, I didn't put enough hardener in it, and that's not mixing it properly. At the end of the day, that's what that comes down to. Human error. I've messed up there, so it's bit me. But you can't go blaming the product. That's on me at the end of the day. Only immature people blame the product. I've the product doesn't just decide to not do its thing. There's a reason why it doesn't go off or it stays soft or it doesn't go hard. It's down to what you've done with it at the end of the day. If you've mixed everything properly and as you should, then you're gonna have no issues. But yeah, we have no issues anyway now. That like I say, I only had that issue with that one skimmer filler, and we got that sorted. We got that dug out. We got that back in. Yeah, it's so nice to see this side all in epoxy primer now. It means to me that the next milestone now is getting the full shell in black primer, and then once we're in black primer, it is game on. We are painting it very very soon. So yeah, no, I'm so excited. But yeah, getting three coats of this epoxy down, and then we'll call it a day because it's pushing on Saturday now. But yeah, I don't think I've got any real time footage of it. It was all sped up. I'll get some real time footage of the actual application. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for sticking around and watching this one again. This has been a long one, but this has been over a full Saturday. So yeah, no, thank you so much, everyone, and yeah, please keep following. Thank you, everyone.